Shake it up, baby. Oh, Disney happened. Now I'm dead in my feels. They ruined Star Wars. Now I'm dead in my feels. Disney happened. Now I'm dead in my feels. Oh, don't take Star Wars. Don't break Star Wars down, down, down. Throw it away. What's up, guys? This is the Gospel according to Mark with a C. He is I and I am he. Just taking some time to tell you exactly what's on my mind. And guys, I'm wondering this afternoon, how far will these people go to destroy George Lucas's legacy and everything he gifted unto the world? How far will they go to sell their new product? Why am I thinking about this? Well, there have been a few stories lately, and I want to just use this one article to illustrate the point that I'm trying to make right here, even though there's quite a few things going on. And you might realize, you might have noticed recently, I'm trying not to go to the articles as much these days. I'll reference them and everything, but what it is I realize, and I talked about this like months ago, is that these people are actually making a business out of this, right? It's like they're using our outrage to monetize their little bullshit garbage tier websites. You know, so we get outraged, you know, we put the little link in the description box. I was watching a video by Gary from Nerdrotic. Hail Gary, and he was saying how he refuses to do that. He's not going to be putting links to these bullshit articles, you know, in his channel and everything. And I can dig that, man. I agree with that, because that's clearly what they're doing. They are trolling us, and leading up to this garbage episode 9, it's like you're going to see an uptick in this. This is what they're doing, you know what I mean? Especially with Ruin about to release his movie Spoons Out. You know, this is the kind of thing that, you know, as long as his name is out there, I think that is what matters. It doesn't matter if it's surrounded by negativity and disrespect. As long as we're saying his name, which is why I'm just calling him Ruin. You and I both know who I'm talking about. So I'm trying to limit the amount of, you know, just publicity I give to these people, all right? But I do want to use this article here to illustrate a couple of points, because it's just they went above and beyond to prove the point that I and many other content creators have been trying to make in the Fandom Menace here. And this one, of course, why, who else but the Mary Sue, Mary Sue, Mary Sue, the Mary Sue, my Mary Sue. Yes, this is in the MarySue.com, and I want to read the headline for you so you can see exactly where this shit is going, right? It says here, not only are the new Star Wars films better than the prequels, they might be better than the originals. Shut your mouth. Yes, that's what they said. Not only are the new Star Wars films better than the prequels, they might be better than the originals. And then it says, come at us, bros. It actually says that. Come at us, bros. Why? Why so combative? You see, right from the top, they're telling you that they're aiming this. They want the response. Well, here it goes, bitches. And this is by Jessica Mason, okay? So you want it, you got it. You want it, you got it. You want it, baby, you got it. All right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Another weekend, another bad take on the internet, making people mad. Yesterday, it was this article from CNET that made the bold claim that the new Star Wars trilogy is worse than the prequels. Yes, a lot of people covered that one. I, however, did not, because, I mean, like I said before, I'm trying not to do that shit, but we all know that this is true. Of course, the prequels are better than the new trilogy in so many ways. I mean, I can tell you right off the bat, we saw how Emperor Palpatine rose. Now, can you say that we saw where Snoke came from? All right? It's like you want to talk about, Snoke corrupted Kylo. Well, how did Snoke get to Kylo? Kylo was surrounded by Han Solo, Leia, and Luke, and I would assume the Force Ghosts of Anakin or something. Like, everybody was asleep for this kid, you know what I mean? But somehow Snoke was able to corrupt him out of no fucking where, you know what I mean? They never explained that. So that tells me right there that the prequels are superior in storytelling than the so-called sequel, what I call the Nyquil trilogy, because there was no explanation given for anything. You know, not the least of which, why our three main characters from the original trilogy died estranged from each other. Going on. Let's see. It's a clickbaity headline, yes, but the points in the article makes, that J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson have something to learn from George Lucas's abysmal work. Ooh, did you see that? Did you hear that? Ooh, it's a clickbaity headline, yes, but the points the article makes that J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson have something to learn from George Lucas's abysmal work behind the camera on the prequel trilogy is just wrong. Okay, so in other words, they're saying that J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson don't have shit to learn from George Lucas and his abysmal work. All right, let alone that none of this would be possible without George Lucas. Like, talk about some ingrates. What the holy hell? All right. On every meaningful level, the new Star Wars films are miles better than the prequel trilogy. And in some ways, they're actually better than the originals. Yeah, I said it. That's what it says. Yeah, I said it. Now, a lot of criticisms of the new trilogy in the bad article is about plot arcs and character beats of the new films, but the author's argument rests on a very bad premise, mainly that he's talking about a trilogy that isn't complete yet. Sorry, dude. You can't criticize Rey's arc for being unfocused if you don't know where it's going. We have no idea how the new Sage will end, so it's incredibly silly to compare the 3 movie arcs of the prequels or the originals to 2 movies and a trailer. Hold the fuck up. Let me just point something out to you here, buddy. All right? Given what you're saying, okay? Okay. The new so-called trilogy isn't complete, but I will put this out there for your consideration. By the end of The Empire Strikes Back, which I believe was the second movie in the original trilogy, we already loved Han Solo, Princess Leia, Luke Skywalker, Chewbacca. We were kind of on the fence with Lando, but you know what I mean? He had already taken his steps into immortality, as they all did. By the end of The Empire Strikes Back, Darth Vader, of course, by the end of The Empire Strikes Back, they were all legends. All right, so even if Return of the Jedi wasn't everything we thought it would be, they already were legendary in the eyes of the fans. We had Star Wars A New Hope, we had Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back. That was sufficient. Our minds were blown. Now, of course, we knew that it was a cliffhanger and there was going to be a continuation to it and everything, but we were invested in them in a way that we have yet to be invested in Rey, Poe, and Finn, and Snoke, and whoever the hell, and Porgs, you know, whoever, Kylo, whoever the hell else you want to name. All right. Now, is this something that is debatable? You know, that's what I want to know. I know that you're trying to sell the new trilogy and everything, but can we at least agree to that? I mean, that seems like a no-brainer to me, that the original trilogy cast were legends by the end of Empire Strikes Back. And these guys here, I'm using your words, it's unfair to judge them because we don't know where their story is going. So we have no way of knowing whether they're going to be legendary or not at this point. All right. But by the time The Empire Strikes Back was over, kids everywhere loved it. You know what I'm saying? And kids today are not buying the toys. All right, they're not wearing any of the clothes. As a matter of fact, I remember one day at school, my son was teased for wearing a Star Wars shirt by another kid. He said, "Do you like that? You actually like that?" And my son never wore a Star Wars shirt after that. That is an actual fact. All right, so you can go on in your delusion if you want to. I'm actually ground zero with what these kids are doing, okay? Because I'm actually plugged into my child's life. I know that's something that Disney actually doesn't stand for, the father actually being plugged into their child's life, but that, I am. Guilty. All right, now going on. We have no idea how the new Sage will end, so it's incredibly silly to compare the 3 movie arcs of the prequels or the originals to 2 movies and a trailer. He acknowledges things like the writing and the acting of the new films are better, and yet still sees fit to criticize plots that aren't complete. And the critiques of the plots that are complete are bad, though. The author argues that the new films have no dramatic stakes and that we don't get big deaths like Qui-Gon's in the prequels. I guess he was asleep when Han Solo got skewered by his own son in The Force Awakens, or when Rey and Kylo unexpectedly killed the red herring big bad in The Last Jedi. Get the fuck out of here. The reason why it doesn't have the same impact is because, number one, that whole thing with Han Solo didn't make any sense. Nobody understood what the dynamic was between the father and son, so there was no real dramatic impact. If we didn't know why Kylo turned over to the dark side, we had no idea. you know, so he just ended up looking like a brat. Whereas Qui-Gon, you know, there was a mission, there was a thrilling battle with Darth Maul. You know, we knew that Obi-Wan was, you know, was emotionally attached, you know, to Qui-Gon, and it's like, come on, it's like it was a totally different thing. It was much better done. So don't kid yourself with that. Okay. He must have also dreamed up a version of the Phantom Menace where Qui-Gon, an interesting character, not a series of plot devices, who stole a child from his home. He stole the child from his home and left his mom in slavery. He also argues that the prequels have dramatic tension when they are by nature predetermined in how they end. Come on. Oh, just more bullshit. Let's see. It's all bad faith straw man fallacies. The comparisons in the article reek of fanboy rage about how Star Wars is different now, and it shows in the shallowness of the arguments and accusations that the prequels bypassed the new trilogy in any way. The prequel trilogy were essentially bad fanfics made independently by a man who didn't care about emotion, plot, or impact. Woo! And of course, once again, they're talking about the creator. They're talking about George Lucas. The prequel trilogy was essentially bad fanfics made independently by a man who didn't care about emotion, plot, or impact. You can't sell your so-called garbage-ass sequel trilogy without dumping on the very man who made it possible. That is pathetic. They were boring 2-hour-long toy commercials with wooden dialogue, terrible acting that used nascent CGI and digital technology to place characters in environments where they looked as lifeless and fake as possible. All right, now we can debate about how the CGI looked at that time, what was possible. Yeah, that's all fair game. All right, but like I said before, I was one of those people who actually appreciated the prequel trilogy because I saw what he was trying to do. Much like when you watch Star Trek from back in the 60s. Yes, it was camp. Yes, it was cheap looking, but I appreciated it, as did everyone who had a functioning imagination, because we saw what they were shooting for. You know what I mean? So we gave them that. We gave them that allowance where, yeah, this could have been better or that could have been better. But the concept and the story was mind-blowing half the time with the original Trek, which is why it endures, which is why the fans had to save it after the corporation canceled it and brought it with it was the fandom, the fans, that brought it back and made it the global phenomenon that it is. Never forget that, guys. That's so relevant. Okay. The new Star Wars films, including Rogue One and Solo, get back to the solid, real filmmaking and fun, complex characters that made the first Star Wars trilogy great. And instead of sucking the life out of the myth and majesty of the originals the way the prequels do, I disagree, they all improve on it. The characters in the original trilogy, a movie made for kids, as Freddie Prize, they call him Freddie Prize Jr. Yeah, you respect him so much you can't get his fucking name right. Freddie Prize Jr. just reminded us, and you gotta figure, like, they have editors, right? It's like somebody saw this. It's like they don't even know what the fuck they're talking about enough to get the man's name right that they're trying to reference. Freddie Prize Jr. just reminded us, are literal archetypes straight out of Joseph Campbell. Yeah, you're so smart. They're great, but ultimately simple, and that's fine. But the characters in these new films are far more complex and interesting. Even the old characters have grown up and advanced in complexity. If by grown up and advanced in complexity you mean disgraced and killed, okay, I'll give you that. Everyone in the new film is more morally ambiguous and rebellious. One might say better. One might be an asshole. And they're not majority white. Oh, here it is. And they're not majority white and male. Yes, we're going there. Oh, you faggot ass. Yes, I said it. The diversity and progressive ideals of the new Star Wars films place them miles above the originals and the prequels. There's more than one woman. There's more than one person of color. Those women and people of color have agency and don't just die of a broken heart or serve as plot devices or love interests. Is that so? Alright, guys, since they brought it up, and I've talked about this many times before, on film, on camera, whatever you want to call it, I am a so-called person of color. Some might say a black man. And let me tell you something, Mary Sue, and all you SJWs, NPC bastards that are out there, listen to me clearly. You don't speak for me, okay? You come far from speaking for me. Because something that I've noticed here is that the fandom menace that you're trying to shut down, that all these people are blocking, and everyone who's like associated with them, you know, which reeks of censorship. When you look at what Rotten Tomatoes is doing, you know, everyone wants to silence the voice of the critic, but when you look at the so-called fandom menace and the voices of criticism, it seems like people of color are more represented over here and welcomed on this side than they are there. You don't even acknowledge that I fucking exist, or my son for that matter. And there's my problem. If just one of you had acknowledged that there are people of color out there who are dissatisfied with the movie, just fucking one of you, then you might have had some credibility with me, all right? And I am a fair man. It's like if the new trilogy were that good, you best believe I would be saying it. I don't have a problem with it. If episode 9 is good, I have no problem whatsoever with saying it. I hope that it is, all right? But what I've seen up until now, it's been one big wasted, missed opportunity that will forever scar George Lucas's perfect work. Or, you know, maybe not so perfect, but perfect in what he was trying to do in his mind. All right, because he is the creator. Of course, nothing is perfect, all right, but I'm just saying, he's the creator, so you give him those liberties to try and to experiment, more so than you would give a Rian Johnson who admittedly doesn't know what the hell he's doing. All right, he said, when it comes to my trilogy, I just have to sit down for a minute, and I have to try to figure out what is Star Wars. And this is someone who you think is going to perfect it when George Lucas couldn't in your mind? I beg to differ. But anyway, like I was saying, all right, you don't speak for me. You don't speak for black people, so stop it. All right, your idea of representation on screen is Finn, a glorified runaway slave who has no connection to his roots whatsoever. Yes, Roots, a movie that came back, a miniseries back in the freaking 70s. Why don't you go look that up and see why it's so important for a character to actually know his own heritage and where he came from and not be renamed with no connection, you know, to his own past. You call that progression, huh? You call that inclusion. You call that respect. All right, I call that fuck you. Don't speak for me. Don't ever speak for me or anybody like me. All right, we all have different mindsets. All right, we don't all exist on just one plane of thought. We're not all marginalized the way you want to try to make us seem. All right. Let's see. The whole point of the new trilogy is how important a diverse and democratic force is. Bullshit. Nostalgia is very kind to the original Star Wars trilogy. It's kind to everything. But we can love something, and believe me, I do love the old films. No, you don't. You couldn't write something like this and really love the old films. Get the hell out of here. No way. See, those of us who actually have passion, we know bullshit when we hear it, so you can write this if you want to, but your whole article reeks of disrespect and resentment, not just towards George Lucas, but everybody who has been attracted to his work all these years and who have maintained it, who come out to the conventions and all of that. You're just middle fingering all of us, and then you want to talk about, yes, we love the old films. No, you don't. Nostalgia, however, has never been kind to the prequels. There has to be some sort of fandom Stockholm syndrome at work for a discerning viewer to think that the basic filmmaking of the new movies isn't better than anything that's come in the past. But it's probably just the same anger we see from all sorts of Star Wars, quote, fans, when they're confronted by the fact, when they're confronted by the fact that this franchise doesn't just belong to little white boys anymore. See, that's what I'm talking about. There's the disrespect. I grew up, my brother, rest his soul, grew up with this, all right? So for you to say it doesn't belong to little white boys anymore just completely disregards me. You understand? It disregards all of the world who aren't little white boys. Women, whether they're white, whether they're black, whether they're Asian, whether they're Latino, whether they're Indian, you know, all over the world, people have been attracted to this. But you have the nerve to sit there and think you're representing us and say that it doesn't belong to little white boys anymore, not acknowledging me right here, right now. And you think somehow you're progressive. Well, my hands start to shake. Wait. What is this? I guess this means just as the Force belongs to everyone, just like the boring myths and rules of the Jedi Order had to be destroyed, so too does the idea that George Lucas was some misunderstood genius whose prequel trilogy was anything but an ego trip that misunderstood everything that was great about his first film. Lucas got lucky with Star Wars and continued to be lucky when he worked with other directors on Empire and Return of the Jedi. Let's bring that back. Just like the Force, or just as the Force belongs to everyone, just like the boring myths and rules of the old Jedi Order had to be destroyed, so too does the idea that George Lucas was some misunderstood genius whose prequel trilogy was anything but an ego trip that misunderstood everything that was great about his first film. Lucas got lucky with Star Wars and continued to be lucky when he worked with other directors on Empire and Return of the Jedi. But it was J.J. Abrams, Rian Johnson, and perhaps most importantly, Kathleen Kennedy, that got what worked in Star Wars and improved it, diversified it, and democratized it. Their films weren't made to just sell toys. Well, I think we all know that because they're not selling any toys. Tell dry, unmoving backstory, or tell dry, unmoving backstories, I think they mean. They made films to inspire audiences, all audiences. And that's why, by my reckoning, they're better than anything that came before. Okay, well, there you have it, guys. All right, I tried to get through it as quickly as possible without freaking vomiting. But once again, I present this to you because this is a perfect example of where the future of the so-called franchise is heading. This is not the end of the Skywalker saga. This is the end of the Lucas saga. All right, for someone to write this and for people to actually back it up, for people to applaud this bullshit, for people to applaud the silencing of critics, realizing or without realizing that ultimately they're silencing their own voice because the fandom is nothing but the customers. All right, and if the customers can't say how they feel about what they paid for, that affects everybody. It's like all these people out here who are blocking the voices of the fans. You know, all you people should be ashamed of yourself. You're on Twitter blocking everybody. You know, like I said before, Rotten Tomatoes, blocking everybody. What do you think is going to come from this? You think this is just going to stop with pictures, with motion pictures and films? If we allow our psyche to accept this, this is where we're moving as a society. This is going to leak over into politics. We already see it now. Families breaking up over Donald Trump and shit like that. Like there's not going to be another election next year. We can't stand differences of opinion. Cancel culture has gotten out of control. And this is something that behooves all of us to put into check. All right? So this is the reason why I shared the article, guys. I want you to see where we're going with this. There's got to be a way for people to appreciate what comes up in the future without bashing what we got in the past or trashing or demeaning it. But that's not what these people are into. They're into silencing people. That's censorship. That's not where we want to be in this world. But let me know how you guys feel about this. All right, it's gone on long enough. You can, of course, like, you can share, you can subscribe. When you subscribe, please hit the notification bell. I do appreciate that. Get in the comment section. Please let me know how you feel about this. Of course, you can catch me on Twitter. I will be there. Come look me up. All right, guys, I'll catch you on the next one. This is The Gospel According to Mark with a C. Rock on.